Kina mama, kina dada, Nasuri si mchawi jamani. Sikia, Nasuri ni hali isiyo ya kawaida. Watiri kina mama na hata wasichana, hususan wakipata shida wakati wa
Motherhood, a natural and blessed calling that our women heed. It is a fact that African societies have different perceptions on women. But one that unites them all is the position of mothers in the communities. It is a position often held in reverence. While motherhood is respected and cherished, there lies a danger that comes with it. Giving birth is as good as walking a thin line between life and death, especially here in Africa. The horrifying number of deaths during childbirth is quite high in the continent. It is a stain that African governments are striving but struggling to eradicate.
We can create awareness, lobby for, and put in place supportive measures to strengthen the capacity of our health systems, to offer more treatment and surgical repairs, as well as enabling training of more doctors.
Some of the survivors of complications relating to pregnancies and childbirth are living a life of regret, stigma, and fear. One such complication is fistula.
I had a problem of urine leaking throughout after delivery. My husband abandoned me at the hospital. In 1973 October, I was taken to the labor ward where I had obstructed labor, and they used some metals to get the baby out and in the process injured my womb. I suffered for a whole week without talking. I was only able to talk after the second week, and this made the doctor so happy. I had this problem in 1991. This was my third child, but the child didn't survive the same way my other second child died while receiving care at the hospital. They took me to the theater, and immediately I got there, I encountered this problem. And have been suffering until I heard of a hospital in Kisii town. Later, I visited Eldoret, but I didn't get healing.
Catherine Mora is one of the many mothers that have suffered fistula. Today she is happy, not just because doctors are paying her a visit. Her joy is a sign of gratitude for healing after suffering from fistula for more than 48 years, following a difficult childbirth. Even though she is among a few lucky women in Kenya that have had surgery to correct the situation, her life has not been rosy. She lost her marriage due to the stigma that comes with fistula and was not able to carry another child. Many women, especially in the villages, are in a situation like hers. That occurs when there is an abnormal connection between the rectum and the vagina caused by injuries during childbirth.
She has a uterus and the exit from the uterus, which we call the cervix, and the birth canal. Around the uterus and the birth canal, we have organs that are, you can call them sisters, that help her perform and the normal functions like passage of urine. So we have the bladder here, and we have the urethra that brings out the urine from her body. And behind the birth canal and the uterus, we have the rectum and sometimes the colon. So when the baby normally is held up in the uterine cavity until when the time comes for the woman to give birth. And during that time, the uterus contracts or gives it power to push the baby out through the exit into the birth canal, all the way until the baby is born. Now, for some reason, like for example, if the baby is too big or the birth canal of the woman is too small, then the baby is not able to try to move freely through the exit of the uterus and the birth canal to the outside. So they get trapped somewhere in between here. And when they are trapped, it means we call that obstructed labor. So that that diagnosis must be made immediately for action to be taken to help the woman get her baby out. And the action that normally one would do is to perform a cesarean section whereby the baby is born through the abdomen and outside and avoids the obstructed place that happens in the birth canal. If this doesn't happen, and then the baby gets trapped in the birth canal. When they are trapped, there will be compression of all the tissues that are lying or are next to the birth canal, like for example the bladder, like the urethra, like the rectum. And when there's obstruction, these tissues will then lie in between the baby's head and the bone pelvis of the woman, the bone of the woman. And this compression stops blood flow to these tissues. And if they are not relieved in time, these tissues die because of lack of blood supply. And when the tissues die, they fall off and leave a hole like this one, where the circle is a communication between the bladder and the birth canal, or sometimes between the rectum and the birth canal. When this happens, urine quickly leaks, because that's an issue point. It will quickly leak through that communication or hole into the birth canal and outside. Or sometimes the stool comes from the rectum, will come through into the birth canal and outside, because this is a point of least resistance. And this woman, therefore, leaks urine 24 hours. She waits her clothes 24 hours. She smells of urine and sometimes smells also of stool. And for that reason, the woman who gets this becomes shaken. She becomes frightened and most likely withdraws herself, becomes mentally depressed and physically depressed. So much that the family now fears or to go next to her. They kind of keep her away from family functions, and these women become socially withdrawn and can get depressed and even commit suicide.
We really need to encourage men to come out and support their wives, their fiancés, so that they can face the journey together. It's not something that it's equally easy in terms of treatment. The treatment is long-term. People have to undergo a surgery, and these surgeries, sometimes they're also equally expensive and constraints.
Fistula 2016 nkarora omuchando ntanyale kueleza.
When I got this fistula in 2016, I suffered a lot. The baby died and I became bedridden, unaware of what was happening to me. My mother-in-law ran away and later asked her son to relocate to another town. He later claimed that he can't take care of a barren woman. Truly, I suffered a lot. A lot of people ran away from me, thus I didn't receive any help. I thought about committing suicide since I had stayed at the hospital. I thought of committing suicide since I had stayed at the hospital ward without anyone helping me out. But I thank God Jerusha and Sabina brought help to me and later on encouraged me since I had despaired.
Babo Jerusa na Sabina bakanyikange egera bakanyara gonshughulikera bakangomoyo singincho kwenye nerusiri moyo nga mbuya nkwe obwakorora omuchandonga bunoyo iga.
A woman with fistula can see urine leaking through her legs throughout the day. More women are faced with stigma in their homes and the society due to the shame that comes with the defect. Many have faced rejection, divorce, depression that has almost led them to suicide.
I surely stayed in and out of the ward for more than 2 months and still didn't get well. I kept attending the clinics, but still it got worse. While in hospital, my husband got married to another woman. My mother-in-law kept spitting at me and hurling abuses that I am a stinking curse, that I should have died in the hospital and be buried. But my parents requested to take me back home so that I can stay with them. My husband didn't agree to that. When the problem keeps persisting, people keep whispering about my stinking self. They despise me and abuse me that I don't take a shower or wash myself, nor my clothes. I always get angry, but there is nothing I can do but pray for them. Because you don't know about tomorrow. It can happen to anyone.
So it becomes a big issue for this woman. So many of these women stay within the communities, isolated and withdrawn socially before they can access that
Well, the demeaning
service.
social treatment is largely driven by ignorance. There are some organizations that are intervening to reverse the situation. One such organization is Lugina Africa Midwives Research Network, or LAMREN. In collaboration with Kenyatta National Hospital, and one such doctor who has been very active is Otahisa Weston Wakasiaka, an obstetrician and gynecologist.
It's not an easy road that many people can travel to be a fistula surgeon. So you find we are fewer in the country that can recognize or diagnose fistula. And after diagnosis, they prepare to repair the fistula and hopefully restore this woman, restore her life.
Women leaking feces, it's not something easy that somebody will go and start discussing with their peers. But if the society actually accepted that this is a problem like any other that can be sorted out and the woman will go back and experience normal life, then this will encourage even the men to come out.
With the mentioned partners, the organization has been organizing surgical and other forms of treatment for victims of fistula in various parts of Kenya. One of the mechanisms involved is raising awareness on this condition.
According
to the 2010 report by Human Rights Watch, around 3,000 women and girls develop fistula every year in Kenya. The report also stated that between 30,000 and 300,000 women have been living with this condition.
The woman, once they present to the hospital, they are admitted within the hospital, and what that means is you open a file for them. Okay, they come to us to be able to take the history, to be able to examine her, to confirm that indeed she has a fistula, and at the same time to confirm that it can be repaired. And once that has been done, that woman will be admitted to the wards after preparation, so that then she's prepared to go to theater. And in theater, when the lady arrives in theater, we position her well after anesthesia, and we are able to assess properly as to how many fistulas they are there, what classification they are, and what kind of approach that we need to do if we have to repair that fistula. And we'll go then ahead and then repair the fistula, basically close that hole. Once the hole is closed, this woman will then be given a catheter, which she holds the catheter to help her pass urine that comes to the bladder to allow the closed fistula to heal for 2 weeks. Then the catheter can then be removed after we have ensured the fistula has closed. And then this woman is advised on how to pass urine.
Rural women with fistula in the villages stay isolated due to lack of hospitals that can offer fistula repairs. Here in Kenya, this service is mostly available in the capital city of Nairobi. On the same breath, the surgeons who can perform this service are very few.
Though it has helped many women, we are only able to manage about 30% of these women every year. So we still have a backlog of women waiting to access our service, and which we hope that in future, with an accelerated service, we're able to reach all these women and be able to prevent even the new fistulas from developing.
This necessitated the introduction of camps in various parts of East Africa in the year 2006 in an effort to get to the fistula victims.
In many developed countries, the systems are not so well developed as to enable this woman to access these services. So as a fistula surgeon, my biggest challenge will be how would the woman come to where I am. I'm here based in Nairobi, and the women that are probably at developed fistula in the rural parts of Kenya, it is such a big challenge. You have never been to Nairobi to reach. So even if you are told you can only get this service in Nairobi, it's such a big challenge. Many of the relatives or friends that you have never been to Nairobi at all.
While fistula is a common occurrence during childbirth, the lack of expertise and policies to support poor communities to combat it are some of the contributing factors for its prevalence in Kenya.
They are received. So the screening starts from
ngopime na nje ndore na kiogenderete arabu manya kumbekira.
High poverty levels in many rural communities and lack of infrastructure leads to many victims not only living with the condition but also enduring its psychosocial effects. This is the gap that Lambren is seeking to bridge. To achieve this, Lambren has partnered with Royal Media Services and Safaricom, which help in mobilizing patients with fistula in rural areas to attend medical camps where treatment takes place at no cost. One such a facility that has benefited from these surgeries is Kisii Teaching and Referral Hospital in western part of Kenya.
We want to thank all our friends and partners from the London School of Tropical Medicine and Lambren, Kenya, for their support, and hope that they'll find the Kisii Teaching and Referral Hospital a place that they'll enjoy working in, and also their help will be much welcome with the society that we work with in this region.
For victims of fistula, the joy of regaining a dignified life, free of the shameful effects of the condition, life takes a new meaning and definition. This is the life after fistula. The smile christened on their faces as we visit them after the surgeries and full recovery is a testament of the joy that they have been lacking. The success and smiles of each operation comes at a cost. Doctors involved in this program devote their expertise and time. However, they may do more with more facilitation to reach the huge number of patients scattered across Kenya. But prevention is always better than treatment.
Kwa kunifanyisa. Nawapenda hivyo nyinyi wote madaktari wangu. Asante.
In order to alleviate the issue of fistula for mothers, there are few steps that need to be taken. These are capacity building for health workers to timely and appropriately manage obstetric emergencies and help prevent fistula, proper diagnosis and immediate care for fistula patients. B. Conservation management, catheter insertion and care, fluid intake, about 5 liters a day, high protein diet, counseling. C. Referral, proper referral of fistula cases for timely surgical interventions. Other ways of preventing fistula are community involvement, engaging policymakers to invest in women's health, to provide fistula framework for service delivery and training of health workforce. Motherhood is nature's way of sustenance and continuity. However, giving birth need not to be a death sentence, where and when possible. Neither should it be a condemnation to a life of shame and personal suffering. For an African mother is a healthy mother, and healthy mothers are a solid foundation for healthy children and healthier sustainable communities. Fistula is a dehumanizing condition that affects the woman and her family.
Fistulas are not easy, especially in our society, the African setup, and especially for men. For men, they don't talk about fistula, and they would not want to associate themselves with fistula.
Let us end fistula now. A fistula woman's voice represents many more women who died during childbirth, whose voices we shall never hear.
My experience started the year back when my wife was pregnant, expecting twins. And like any other parent, we expected to have 2 bouncing babies. Along the way, we went for clinic. She was doing well until that time when we were just in the house and she experienced what we call a rupture of membrane. So she broke her water. And then after that, we went to hospital. The doctor assured us that she was okay and she was admitted. So in the process of being admitted, we were in the hospital for quite some time because, as you know, after experiencing that, then you can't go home. You have to be in the hospital. So in the hospital stay, I can say that most of the things were done to ascertain that the babies were okay, together with the mother. My only experience and the only difficulty that I faced was that as a man, this is not something that you expect or people will talk about. So during the hospital stay, most of the things will be communicated to her, and I would get to know through her. So you can see that most of the health workers did not involve me in her care. Just like any other person, I would have wished to be involved directly.
Speak up and let us end fistula now.
To come near to the woman, especially in the rural parts of Kenya. So we initiated camps where a group of surgeons would then visit in the rural parts of Kenya to be able to go closer to these women who have developed fistula and then announce or create awareness in the community so that they come out and can be assisted. And since the biggest challenge sometimes is to have money to transport them to the hospitals where we can perform the surgery. So we sometimes have